Well, hi there, and this is a bit of a follow-up video from a few of my previous ones. The help why my little B20 amp ESCs burst into flames, the retesting of my 4SM R250, the raw lipo, and for the guys on Facebook that watched it, one called Blackboxing. So I'm following up because I had a few problems in getting my new 250 to fly right, and I always like to follow up after I've had issues, just in case someone sees the originals, has the same problem, and wonders how it was fixed. So I'm going to try and go through them one by one, and then I can show some flights and a nice question at the end. So the little B problem I had first off, having sort of collected some general opinions and talked to a few guys, it seems to be the case of don't run up the motors at high throttle, even for an instant, without the props on. The RPM goes really high and the ESCs burn out, quite literally, in my case, flames and smoke and all sorts. Since I've replaced the two, I've burnt out, and I've still needed to run them without props just to make sure they're spinning in the right directions. But what I haven't done is put the throttle up too high. That's absolutely fine. And I've done a bunch of flights. And you do get a bit of video noise from them still, despite being on a completely separate 12-volt voltage. But it's nothing bad. It's quite flyable, and it's not anything I notice. Only when I've looked at it on playback, I'm thinking, well, it's a little bit nicer. But I need to really have a bit of a shout out. When I originally got the ESCs and motors, they weren't in stock anywhere local, so I bought them from Impulse RC all the way in Australia, about as far away as I could. When I was doing my initial investigations and trying to find out from people what happened, I emailed those guys just to see if they've had any customers report things similar. I absolutely stressed that I thought this was purely my fault, but I was just really after knowing what I did to make sure I didn't do it again and kill more ESCs. So Brian at Impulse RC, as well as confirming the likely cause, was nice enough to offer me a discount on my next order, which would cover the blown ESCs, which is really above and beyond. So next thing, onto the handling. So although I was feeling the quad was really controllable and it felt reasonably locked in, I was getting a really unacceptable amount of vibration into the footage. I'd spent 8 lipos, of which I didn't really publish any videos, trying to tune the PIDs, but I just seemed to be going around in circles. And that's where the blackboxing video comes in. I'll show a quick clip here for the guys who didn't see it. Not that I really knew what I was doing in terms of diagnosing from blackboxing, but I thought it was quite interesting anyway. So from that, I thought I'd move from clean flight to beta flight to see how that went. When I got a ping from Luke that you may know better on YouTube, of course, as Bandy UK, on Facebook, who told me about the new noisy gyro issue on an A6, and of which the latest alpha code on Betaflight would help to filter. And he also kind enough to give me some PIDs to try after asking me what motors, props and lipo I was running. So big thanks to Luke for coming to my aid there. So armed with Betaflight 262 Alpha 3 and another bunch of lipos, I set off to the field. Although the skies were not looking friendly and it was decidedly windy. This first flight is using the default PIDs, and although it's a little wobbly, it's still way better than what I had last time. So I went on to another lipo and I stuck in Luke's PIDs, which are really just a starting point, but it should give me a good place to move from. And I had another go there, and it's already feeling tighter, although at the point of playback I noticed the angle of the mobius isn't quite matching up with the FPV camera, so we're suffering more grass and ground than we like. The increased angle of the FPV camera as well meant my landings weren't always the best. I'm finding it quite tricky to come in sort of looking upwards. Although what was useful about this little rollover is I noticed that my HS 1177 camera was able to move around quite easily, and I figured it was causing some of the high-speed wobble in the video I was getting. So I patched up quickly with a rubber band, as seen here. So here's my pre-rubber band view of my FPV camera, which you'll notice has this bobbling effect, only at high speed when I'm guessing the wind is buffering it about more. And here's the post-rubber band view, which is far better, much more rock solid. Next, it rained, so I hid by a tree for 15 minutes on the way to the next field, at which point I was just having fun. One of the vibration balls for the mobius mount came off here, so the angle is way off in the remaining footage. I did somehow manage to completely power off my motors in mid-flight, which I don't really recommend. And the landings didn't improve. What I noticed most about that full power climb out is the oscillation in the motors. So I checked the TPA to find out it wasn't on. So I tried adding that in, and this resulted in a much cleaner climb out. This of course led me to being happy and having a fun fly looking for some gaps. Sadly, some gaps turned out to have hidden dangers. And this was the case of literally the invisible tree jumping out to get you. After about an hour of searching, I found the mobius, and when I finally found it, I'd gone all a bit loopy and started talking to it like a person.
Got ya! Oh my god, you're still recording! I've been looking out for you! Well, not quite as pristine as when we left. I bet you can't tell which side here, can you? Is it this side? Or is it this side, where the motors were impaled? Oh, there's mud all in there. I have to get it cleaned out. Fortunately, not too big a job. Just props.
So this brings me up to now, and another few small changes made. First was the HS1177, which is now in place a lot more solid, just with some glue around the back to hold it in. It's pretty much up at about the max angle it can get to with that. And I found out that my original mobius wedge wasn't quite getting there. I also figured out that the rubber balls, and checked with a couple of guys on forums, were not helping me. I think the wind and the quite small rubber balls were sort of deforming around and causing some issues. So I've actually printed out a new mount, which is at a more appropriate angle. This is mounted on some of these little foam stickies, which gives a little bit of, if there's any movement, it should soak it up. And then it's strapped into place with these things, of which I forgot what they're called, and hopefully that should stop the whole thing coming off. So all rebuilt, well, it wasn't really much of a build, all ready for more testing and fun crashes, and just working on those PIDs a little more to try and get as smooth as I can. So I hope if you got here after looking at the problem on the ESC video, this has kind of explained it and helped you out a bit. But I'm looking forward to my next fly when the weather stops being awful, and I'll see you next time. Bye.